Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We were chatting in the back. I think this might be the first time that two chartered accountants have done this press conference. But happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. It's always helpful to spend time together as premiers. The COF table is a real collaborative table. Everybody shares the same challenges in governing, the same struggles in our respective provinces. So it's a real collaborative table that really puts politics to the side and just focuses on the issues that matter to Canadians. So that's what today was all about. Today we focused on issues like housing, affordability, infrastructure, energy, and of course emergency preparedness. And as we stand here tonight, we all see what's happening in Toronto with the floods there. We're thinking of them. There's a number of premiers around the table today that are battling forest fires back at home. Of course, here in this province, we had tragic flash flooding just last week. So, of course, emergency preparedness discussion certainly takes on an additional meaning and importance at a time like this. And we know that there's always a need for the federal government to help us invest in mitigation going forward and in recovery from these disasters. But lots of discussion on those topics today. But happy to take any questions you have. You want to do it en français?
Bonjour tout le monde. D'abord, je veux remercier Tim Houston pour son accueil depuis dimanche. C'est un bon gars, c'est un comptable agréé. Et donc, on est content toujours de se rencontrer, les 13 premiers ministres des provinces et des territoires. On a discuté de beaucoup de sujets. Vous le savez, un des sujets qui me tenait à cœur et qui est dans le communiqué, c'est concernant les demandeurs d'asile. J'ai sensibilisé les autres premiers ministres aux impacts sur le logement, sur l'éducation, la santé, sur l'avenir du français à Montréal, du trop grand nombre de demandeurs d'asile qu'on a au Québec. Puis on a convenu ensemble de demander au gouvernement fédéral de réduire le nombre dans les provinces où il y en a trop, comme le Québec. Vous savez, au Québec, on demande de réduire de 50 % le nombre de demandeurs d'asile. On en a 190 000. Dans les 2 dernières années, on a reçu 50 % des demandeurs d'asile, alors qu'on représente 22 % de la population. Donc, ce qu'on veut, c'est un partage équitable entre les provinces. On a discuté aussi du manque de logement chez les peuples autochtones, entre autres des rencontres avec les dirigeants hier. On a aussi parlé des coupures en formation de la main-d'œuvre, 625 millions dans le dernier budget qui a été coupé. Pour le Québec, c'est 145 millions. C'est pas le temps de couper dans la formation de la main-d'œuvre. Donc, on demande à ce que ça soit remis en place. On a aussi, tous les premiers ministres étaient consternés de voir que dans le dernier budget fédéral, il n'y avait pas de nouveaux programmes pour les infrastructures. Pourtant, il y a encore un énorme rattrapage à faire dans les infrastructures. On s'est parlé d'énergie. En énergie, ce qu'on souhaite, c'est que les projets soient approuvés plus rapidement. Donc, on a déjà parlé des dédoublements, entre autres en évaluation environnementale. On a finalement parlé des incendies, des inondations, en demandant au gouvernement fédéral plus de collaboration dans leur aide pour les feux de forêt et les inondations, entre autres ce qu'on voit actuellement en Ontario. Merci.
Bonjour, Patrice Bergeron,
Oui.
la presse canadienne.
Oui.
Monsieur Legault,
Oui.
quelles provinces ont accepté de faire plus de leur part pour accepter les demandeurs d'asile?
Oui, bien, je ne veux pas, à ce moment-ci, révéler les discussions privées qu'on a eues, mais, il y a une ouverture chez certaines provinces. C'est sûr que beaucoup de provinces s'inquiètent déjà du manque de logement. mais il en manque aussi au Québec. Donc, il y a une question d'équité. Donc, on va poursuivre les discussions, mais quand même, je suis content de voir que tous les premiers ministres ont accepté d'écrire dans le communiqué que, il faut que le fédéral respecte la capacité de chaque province, puis que deux, qu'il y ait un partage équitable entre les provinces. Donc, déjà de s'entendre sur ces principes-là. Maintenant, il y a des premiers ministres qui vont regarder combien ils pourraient en prendre, puis qui vont nous revenir.
En complémentaire, si vous
Oui.
permettez, une fois que vous avez convenu que vous allez tous faire demande à Ottawa, à partir de quand vous pensez que ce serait possible de mettre en place ce mécanisme-là, puis qu'il pourrait y avoir des effets rapides, là? Combien ça pourrait prendre de temps?
M. Miller nous a dit que d'ici le mois d'août ou septembre, qu'on devrait avoir des résultats. Donc, lui aussi, le ministre fédéral de l'Immigration, travaille avec les provinces pour les convaincre de déménager une partie des demandeurs d'asile qui sont au Québec dans d'autres provinces. Donc, il y a une urgence d'agir pour nous parce que, bien, comme je le disais, manque d'enseignants, manque d'infirmières, manque de logements, puis impact majeur sur l'avenir du français à Montréal. Donc, on demande qu'il y ait de l'action dans les prochains mois.
Merci.
Question is for the Premier Houston. I'm just wondering, is there anything new on the table in regards to a coordinated response to deal with these ongoing natural disasters?
There was a lot of discussion at the table today amongst the premiers about what some of the unique approaches they're taking in their jurisdiction, and just trying to make sure that we look for the best practices across the country. So here in Nova Scotia, we're establishing the Nova Scotia Guard. That's a process that's coming. In Ontario, they have the Ontario Corps. In Alberta, they're looking at ways to train firefighters, which Atlantic premiers are also talking about as well. So I think the discussion kind of just really focused on an understanding of the need, which is increasing. I say in this province, I've stood up the provincial coordination center in response to a natural disaster 7 times now. In less than 3 years, and in the 10 years before that, it was once or twice. So we know the frequency is increasing, and we know that will continue. But the discussion was around, what can we do to be more prepared and learn from each other, and also what's the relationship with the federal government on that in terms of disaster financial assistance and some of the mitigation investments. So I think there's. Everyone wants to support each other. We see the movement of firefighters and bombers and stuff like this across the country as we support each other, but also in how do we be more prepared before the moment. So significant discussion. It's an important topic.
Do you have any ideas of how provinces could work together more collaboratively, either before or after these natural disasters?
I think when we in terms of the firefighting in particular, the national system is pretty effective. There's I think almost daily calls amongst the fire services across the country, and the movement of firefighters back and forth is pretty effective. And certainly in this province, last year when we had really devastating fires, we had support from a number of provinces, including Quebec and Ontario and New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland had water bombers over here as well. So the collaboration is there to help each other in those moments, but also now the next step is collaboration on what's everyone doing to be prepared so we can use the best practices across the country. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous les deux, Patrick Belrose, Journal de Québec, Journal de Montréal. Monsieur Legault, sur les demandeurs d'asile, c'est un discours que vous portez depuis 2 ans déjà. Mais le communiqué maintenant établit donc que les PM demandent d'établir le nombre approprié de demandeurs d'asile pouvant être acceptés. Est-ce que c'est-à-dire qu'il y a un consensus désormais autour de la table pour dire qu'on reçoit trop de demandeurs d'asile au Canada?
Oui, je pense qu'il y avait au moins un consensus qu'il y en a trop au Québec, là, 190 000. Je pense que ça, c'est clair. Il y a des provinces qui en ont déjà beaucoup, puis il y a des provinces qui n'en ont pas beaucoup. Donc, la situation est vraiment différente d'une province à l'autre. Depuis quelques mois, par exemple, à l'aéroport de Toronto, il y en arrive beaucoup. Donc, le pourcentage est en train d'augmenter, mais il reste que, toute proportion gardée, c'est probablement au Québec qui encore aujourd'hui, on en a de plus, puis on n'est pas capable d'intégrer ces personnes-là. Il nous manque de logements, il nous manque du personnel, puis beaucoup sont à Montréal, puis beaucoup ne parlent pas français.
On sait pendant longtemps, vous avez été seul à porter ce discours-là. Est-ce que vous avez l'impression que maintenant au Canada anglais, ce discours-là résonne et que les mêmes préoccupations se font entendre dans les autres provinces?
Oui, puis j'entendais, là, sans révéler de grands secrets, qu'une éventuelle élection de M. Trump aux États-Unis pourrait venir encore plus augmenter le nombre de demandeurs d'asile. C'est un phénomène qui est mondial. On voit en Europe, c'est la même chose. Donc, on ne peut pas blâmer les personnes de vouloir améliorer leur sort en allant dans des pays un peu plus riches, entre guillemets. Donc, il faut se préparer. Puis, bien, le Canada a toujours été un pays accueillant, mais à un moment donné, il y a une limite à ce qu'on est capable d'accepter. Je pense que ça fait consensus chez les premiers ministres.
Dans la précision, il y a une mention de véritables demandeurs d'asile. Donc, on a accéléré le contrôle des véritables demandeurs d'asile. Est-ce que c'est un enjeu? Est-ce que le Canada laisse entrer trop de demandeurs d'asile qui ne sont pas des véritables demandeurs d'asile?
Bien, vous savez, le phénomène qu'on voit à l'aéroport de Montréal puis de Toronto, c'est qu'il y a des touristes qui prétendent être des touristes ou des étudiants qui prétendent être des étudiants qui, une fois rendus ici, demandent asile. Donc, il y a plusieurs façons de travailler. On peut regarder ce que font certains pays, entre autres mettre en place des visas, faire une recherche. Dans certains cas, il y a des pays qui exigent aussi un montant comme actif pour pouvoir être accepté comme touriste ou comme étudiant. Donc, ça relève complètement du gouvernement fédéral. Puis là, ben, on demande tous les premiers ministres ensemble au gouvernement fédéral de dire « faut resserrer ».
Merci.
I have a question for both of you, either of you, Kat Tunney from CBC. Just want to pick up from comments that Premier Ford just made about how the challenges of the U.S. election were brought up. Just wondering, did you discuss at all how premiers can and should prepare for either a Biden presidency or either a Trump presidency?
Significant discussion around the relationship between Canada and the United States, for sure. There's a significant amount of trade that happens, and Canada is a trusted trading partner to the United States. So the discussion is around how do we maintain that relationship. And one of the interesting things that was discussed was just on Canada's obligations, like under NATO, on the defense spending on the 2%, and how would certain U.S. administrations look on Canada if they weren't to meet those obligations, and what impacts that might have. So those types of discussions are on the minds of premiers and on the minds of Canadians, I would say. But the importance of the trade relationship it is very, very significant, and it's one that needs to be maintained.
As I'm sure you know, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement comes up for review in 2026. So whoever wins, will be in the White House during that review. And I recognize your need to be diplomatic, but was there a feeling at all around the table? Anyone have their fingers and toes crossed for one president over the other?
No, it's just. I mean, look, it's just maintaining the good relations we have. And as provinces and territories, we have relationships with specific states. We have all kinds of relationships there. So that's really the focus. But there is a broader picture at play, and it's something that we're all mindful of, I would say.
Hi, it's Chris Rishowie from the Toronto Star. Just following up on trade issues, Premier Doug Ford was talking about the need to change the message to buy North America, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the discussions on the need to change the strategy.
Well, look, this is a great country that produces great products and has a lot to offer the United States and the world. And I think you know, one of the things that I love about Premier Ford is that how much he values the country as a whole. And it's oftentimes when there's a discussion on a certain topic that maybe some of the bigger provinces might benefit more so from a certain policy from the federal government or something, he's always quick to point out, what about the smaller provinces? What about Atlantic? What about the North? So I do love that about him. And today the discussion was, as we talk about trade relationships and trade opportunities, he of course is a promoter of Ontario, but he was quick to say that maybe it is a broader focus that we need to remind, as necessary, remind our friends in the United States that Canada is a friend and a neighbor, and it's a big country with a lot to offer, and from various parts of it. So I think that was the context of his discussion on Buy North American, Buy Canadian, and it's something that I think is an important thing to remember.
And depending on the outcome of the U.S. election, will different premiers have to do different kinds of outreach to the governors in the U.S. to promote trade?
I think that outreach will be ongoing for sure. Certainly, when a Canadian province or territory goes on a trade mission to the United States, they're meeting with members, Democrats, they're meeting with Republicans as a matter of course. But so I think, you know, what some of the opportunities that we will have and that we need to push and strengthen are around critical minerals, around energy. I mean, these are things that no matter no matter the administration there, are important to the United States, and we can provide them in this country. So we need to keep focused on that. Thank you.
Hello, Premiers. Thanks for being here. And this is a question for Premier Houston. Heidi Petracek with Global National. Before these meetings started, Premier, you wrote a letter to the Prime Minister urging Ottawa to refrain from unilateral actions in areas such as healthcare. Why was it important for you to include that and make that point?
I think it's just really important as provinces and territories, we have certain things that are in our wheelhouse that are our jurisdiction. And we know a lot about them, and we know what we need, and we have ideas on how to approach them. So what we ask for from Ottawa is a partner to work with us on those things, and not try to go around us, as may be the case. Sometimes we see on some of the housing stuff that's happening now. But I think it's just an important reminder that these are relationships. And the relationships need to be respectful, and we're governing our jurisdictions, and we should be respected as such.
What's your view then when Ottawa, ministers in Ottawa, such as the health minister, say, well, we're doing it because provinces aren't? What's your view on that?
Well, I mean, I think that would be an unfair statement. I think as provinces and territories, we're just very focused on one thing, and that's, you know, providing services to our citizens. That's all. So if there's opportunities to do it better and more efficiently, we listen carefully to that, and we hear a lot of that feedback all the time. But it's an opportunity to work together, and that opportunity is there for the federal government, and I hope they take it. I wish they'd take it more.
We have time for one more reporter. Hi, this question's for Premier Houston. My name is Lindsay Jones. I'm with the Globe and Mail. And I wanted to ask a few more specifics around the fatal flooding in Nova Scotia last week. So, you know, this is the second year we've seen a tragedy like this, loss of children's lives. There was, again, a 2 to 3 hour delay from the time emergency responders were, you know, hearing about dire situations, and then, you know, the alert being sent out. In addition to that, no municipality asked for an emergency alert. Is that good enough? And if not, what needs to change?
The loss of life is completely devastating. I mean, it's something that leaves a mark on every Nova Scotian, every single Nova Scotian, and certainly for those families and friends. I mean, it's not something that they'll get over, and that also extends to our first responders who are out in those situations, you know, doing the best that they can. So the loss of life, it leaves a mark, and that mark will remain forever. So when we look at the response in the moment, of course, the emergency alert system is something that gets a lot of discussion. The Mass Casualty Commission talked about, you know, the best ways to do that. There's been a lot of consultations with municipalities and first responder organizations, and in this province, the way that the alert system works is that the municipalities ask for it, and then the province issues it. So that's we're looking at that. In fact, today we sent out a letter on how, you know, just a reminder on how the alert system works, and to expand the number of groups that have authority to issue alerts, just so we get them out there. But look, these tragedies, they cut pretty deep for sure, and they leave a mark.
So last August, you said the exact same thing to me when I asked questions around decentralizing the alert system, the emergency alert system in Nova Scotia. You said you were looking at increasing the number of people that could send it out, including fire officials. That was almost a year ago. Like, why are we still discussing it or sending letters about it? Why hasn't that been done?
Well, we're not discussing it anymore as if it's effective now. But these are, they're complex situations. So in some emergency situations we've had in this province, you might have a first responder who would say we should issue an alert to shelter in place. And somebody else may say we should issue an alert to get out of there. And so which one of those do you go with when you're sitting it? So there's a lot of training and a lot of, you know, there's a lot that goes into this. And you know, sometimes with these flash floods, it's still just, you know, there's just not, it's just not, it's not, they're not predictable, right? So it's hard to predict what to do. But I would say that the training is happening, the authority will be there, and we'll work to get it right.
That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thanks everyone.